warm welcome to my presentation today. It's a case study touching on the tea sector. And it's quite interesting as my slides come up shortly. You know, they say that after water, tea is the most consumed beverage across the world. I know Ian, Ken of EABL and yourself will have to meet behind the tent to confirm whether that's the case in Kenya. But really grateful for this opportunity. DX5, thank you so much for this opportunity to showcase our milestones in terms of how we've leveraged on data analytics for growth, for improved customer experience. And of course, we've also had our sales grow in the process. Now, tea is a very interesting crop. You know, in Kenya today, I would say last year, all the tea farmers in Kenya earned 180 billion shillings in terms of revenue as a result of tea. And of course, tea contributes close to 2% of our GDP, and 13% of Kenya's population rely on tea. So it's a very important crop, if I may say, in Kenya. I'll begin by saying this, that Geoffrey Moore told us that without big data and analytics, companies are both blind and deaf. And you'd probably be wandering out in the web like a deer in the freeway. I couldn't agree more with Moore, because I joined this company about 9 years ago, and I was asked to lead the digital transformation initiatives. And I'll say 9 years ago, as I joined this company, yes, we had the market share. Yes, we had fantastic sales, but there was a missing gap. The company had not transformed digitally. And so the brief as I signed my contract then was, KETEPA needs to transform digitally, because irrespective of how big you are, you could be the Kenya power of today. But the truth of the matter is, no one is immune to any form of disruption. And so I was very grateful that a couple of years later, we were honored by a gold award by CIO, EA, and of course, being the leading manufacturing company that leverages on technology for growth. Some of you may not know, I know my friend Prasanna from Dangote in Nigeria may not know that KETEPA is a subsidiary of KTDA, and our bosses are the 700,000 tea farmers across the country. They're supported by 8 subsidiaries, and this is where my discussion around big data begins. I work with a company that analyzes logistics and warehousing data, analyzes microfinance data for over 700,000 farmers who borrow from the microfinance that we run, Greenland Feather. We also do tea blending and packaging, where I work in KETEPA. We also do machinery. There's a KTDA foundation looking at data across all the tea growing areas. We do hydropower. We generate power, actually, in order to remain afloat and cut down the cost of power, because power is a big component of what we do in terms of tea production from farm to cup. And of course, we have an insurance subsidiary. And of course, we have all the 71 tea factories spread across tea growing counties. And so it's a big group. Yesterday, we had a distinct honor of hosting our president for a factory tour and the launch of a new product. And when he popped into our technology division, we of course were very grateful to have the opportunity to run him through what you're doing in terms of digital transformation efforts and what we're doing in terms of growing our sales across the world. It was quite interesting to note that. Now, 9 years ago, as I joined this great company, my guide was always the Industry 4.0 technologies. And so as I crafted an award-winning IT strategy for KETEPA, my guide was around the technologies that work to power the Industry 4.0 technologies. So when you look across from e-commerce all the way to digital media, cloud computing, automation, IoT is huge in KETEPA. Happy to see my friend now from Liquid. We are, of course, piloting some very exciting IoT projects here in KETEPA. And of course, in the IT space, you must look at all these technologies if you're to grow and focus. But let me just focus a little bit on how we've been able to maximize the analytic value of data. Companies that haven't transformed digitally may be running descriptive analytics, where you probably work with Excel and you're just looking at data that doesn't tell you much. Yeah, but you need to graduate from a descriptive data situation to diagnostic, because you need, as a technology division of any company, you need to answer some of the questions as to why did it happen. And so that wasn't enough. A couple of years back, we welcomed predictive analytics, where you're tasked as a CIO of whatever company you come from, that you should be able to use advanced tools to predict what is likely to happen. And the next slide will tell you why. The data and analytics are the key accelerants to KETEPA's digital transformation efforts. When you look at these great brands, what comes to your mind? You need it, you've got it. Payless every day. Uchumi, Mulays, Choppies. The truth of the matter is that all these retail outlets in Kenya shut down. They just didn't go down. They went down with a lot of the monies that manufacturing companies had invested in. And so from where I sit from a technology division, we in a manufacturing company that do supply goods to some of these outlets, I would say as a CIO, our roles have evolved. We should be able to deploy tools that would be able to predict what is likely to happen, and of course, analyze the challenges ahead. If you run in a company that is not able to predict customer patterns, then you probably would be caught flat-footed by possibly, God forbid, the next retail outlet that is likely to sink. And so our role as CIOs have really transformed from just being the guy that turns on the lights, pulls the cables around, to being able to inform the risk department on the red flags around the buying patterns and the payment patterns for some of the people that you work with. This is why data is important. And so as we talk about data, you of course will be looking at business intelligence, data visualization, data analytics as a service. You'd be looking at managing databases, either on-premise, on cloud, or wherever you're hosting. But I want us to remember one thing, that you can have data without information, but you cannot have information without data. Many companies have data, but what insights can you derive from the data? Many companies have systems, whether legacy or systems that you've upgraded, on-premise, on cloud, or wherever. But is the data you're processing informing you? Because then if you have data without information, then it's a problem. But you cannot have the information without data. So data is important, garbage in, garbage out. Our digital transformation journey commenced by us looking at what data was important for KETEPA. And again, who do you work with? The choice of vendors was also very, very, very important. And so for the past 9 years, I've had to evaluate hundreds of vendors, different technologies, and POC opportunities has given me an opportunity to isolate what technologies would work for us and what wouldn't work for the company. We implemented a very innovative Salesforce automation system that today I can drill down to that retail shop in Wajir, or I can drill down to that retail shop in Isiolo, and I'm able to tell when was our sales rep in the area and what was the customer feedback then. This very innovative solution was able to give us a lot of efficiency, lots of visibility, good growth. And I would say that without a doubt, if you lack this in your business, especially if you play in the FMCG space and you are a manufacturer, then you are in trouble, because you need to have efficient teams. You need to have visibility. Today in KETEPA, any sales rep who's stationed across the country wakes up in the morning and of course gets an alert that today you're likely to collect 4 checks from 4 entities. and that 4 customers have to place an order from you, purely just running on predictive analytics. And so we've grown. 9 years ago, we didn't know how many retail outlets exist in Kenya. Today, we are on our way to mapping close to 100,000 retail outlets across the country. With that kind of data, you're able to predict buying patterns. You're able to predict which products doesn't work in which territories. And so efficiency, visibility, and growth are the key drivers to what technologies we consume here in KETEPA. Before technology, we had an SOS of 25%. 3 years into deploying the technology, if you walk to any modern trade outlet, our products command a share of shelf of very close to 50%, largely driven by technology. Our key accounts manager seated in an office is able to get a view, and I mean almost a near real-time view of all the modern trade outlets across the country. So what are you able to do with that? You're able to check what competition is doing. You're able to look at your product placement. You're able to look at activation. You're able to look at what is it that I should do next in order to increase that share of shelf. And so you cannot do this without robust technologies. We've also ventured into exports. Today, we export to more than 58 countries across the world. And of course, ACFTA is a game changer within Africa. 5 years ago, in our e-commerce platform, we couldn't ship to some of these destinations. Our first consignment of tea landed in South Africa 2 weeks ago, sorry. And of course, we flagged off our first container of tea to Ghana about 2 years ago. And so there's a lot of data that you mine in order to understand the buying patterns, what product would do well in Russia that probably wouldn't do well in the United States, and what can work very well in Australia that can also be consumed in the UK. And so without data, you obviously cannot be able to make up some of these decisions. And so I would say that in KETEPA, data analytics have evolved to just being an IT function. If we are launching a new product like we did yesterday, graced by His Excellency the President, there's been about 3-4 months of data because we did launch and pilot this project. And so this product, and of course, we use that data to determine whether the product has the correct components, is it well received, well packaged, and what is the consumer saying? And so it's people who make the decisions at the end of the day, and it's the people who need to harness this data. I will not dwell a lot on this, but there has been very serious digital transformation across KETEPA. And I'll just mention that visualization is not enough. The tools you run aren't just enough. You must have an end-to-end broad spectrum of how you view data, from how do you acquire the data? Where do you store it? How do you prepare this data? Do you have automated data? How are your databases? Are they on-prem? They're on cloud? How visual is that data? What apps do you have? You have senior executives that should be mobile in order to consume that data and make key decisions on the go. And finally, how have you embedded analytics in your decision-making process? So data analytics is extremely critical in growing this growth. One of the biggest challenges I had, I should say 5 years into our journey, has been the complexity around integration. Because you have a legacy system that has run in a certain corner for the past 47 years. My good friend Mwangi from Unga said that you have fantastic legacy systems and you have attachment issues to those legacy systems. But then you have modern systems that has just been implemented. So how do you marry those two? How integrated is your environment in terms of addressing the needs that you have? But look at this. All crystal reports will take you 6 weeks to build. And 64% of the managers have said that their decision window has narrowed. 42% of the professionals said you need to make data-driven decisions. But again, your choice of tools matter a lot because then organizations that do not adopt or organizations that do not adapt will definitely die. And so do you want to be one of those companies that would die? maybe not. If you are a heritage brand like KETEPA or UNGA, you don't want to be a senior manager in an institution that died when you had an opportunity to make a difference. And so as I wrap up my presentation today on how you can maximize analytic value, I would ask this question: that are you at a descriptive phase? Are you at a diagnostic phase where you're being asked, why did this happen? Or are you at a predictive analytics phase? Without a doubt, data will continue shaping the conversations going into the future. Ian, this is the place where we say, in KETEPA, it's tea time, anytime. Thank you very much. I got to sit.